who's come from and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, he's like a broken home, and the dad's been absent for periods of time. The level of trauma that girl's got in her life has made it more difficult and has brought up triggers within me from my childhood. So how does that affect a woman then, not for them not having a father?
Here's the thing, what a lot of men and women do, when they have an absent father, they remove the pain of it by destroying his reputation, by saying, I hate him, he was a prick, he was this, he was that. Fine. He might be Ted Bundy, he might be the worst person on the planet. It doesn't change the fact that you needed two parents growing up. And the lack of one parent is still traumatic. So how they defend themselves is by saying they didn't need their dad. They don't care about their dad. No worries. No one's suggesting that you did. But it still causes a trauma in a child. And the trauma, you only realize the trauma mostly when they try and get into relationships. And there's a level of fear of abandonment that you can't soothe them with. Sometimes you just can't soothe them. They just might be overly anxious that you're going to leave them. They might be overly independent and think, I don't need you because you might leave at any point. They might be easily triggered. And you're thinking, I'm doing my best. What's wrong with her? Why won't she calm down? Children need two parents. And when they don't have that, they don't regulate their emotions correctly as an adult. And it's hyper-triggered when they're in a relationship and they're finally in love. That's when they behave their worst.
So essentially what you're saying is by having an absent parent, mother or father, you create a chemical imbalance in your brain that now makes you harder to date when you get older, unless you deal with your traumas.
Unless you deal with it.
So if there's people listening to this podcast, that male or female, that have been through this where a parent has been absent, they believe on the surface that they've dealt with it.
Yeah. They'll say, I'm fine. I don't need him. I don't think about him. They think it's about him. They don't think it's about the impact it's had on their psychology. So how can they then do the inside work on a psychological level so that they can attract the partner? Because I know there's one girl specifically that listens to this podcast, and there's a friend of mine, and she dates the same kind of men all the time, and then complains about these type of men on a constant cycle. Yeah. What trigger does she have to break in order to break that? It does depend on the type of wound the dad left. If it was just abandonment, they might and they never met him, they might go for a man a lot older and they're seeking somebody to create that kind of father, masculine figure if they never met him. If it was somebody who was abusive and then left, they'll look for somebody who is equally abusive, makes them earn their love and stuff. So it does depend on the type of trauma. But here's what I would say to start with. Do you have both sides of the story? I've had too many times where I've witnessed women brainwash children and deprive men of access to their children and brainwash that child. And that child grows up completely and utterly loyal to their mum. And with that loyalty, you have to sacrifice objectivity. In order to be completely loyal to your brainwashing mother, you have to be naive about women. And that sets them up terribly. I always find men who grew up with just their mum and no access to their father and no access to the dad's side of the story are more likely to be cheated on.
Repeat that again.
So men who grew up with just their mother and had no access to the dad in any way, didn't understand the dad's side of the story, was just told that dad was terrible, they're more likely to be cheated on by their partners. And the reason being is if they had access to dad and they saw for their own eyes that dad's a bit, he's a bit of a mess, it's not so bad. But when they don't even have access, mum just moved them away, just separated them, got courts involved. What happens there? What happens there is they start to put women on a pedestal. They think women don't lie. Women tell the truth. And they also don't see wife behavior. They don't see that wives are supposed to, come home at a certain time, check in or anything like that. They just see an independent woman. So when they meet women, they're naive. They think women don't lie. Women tell the truth. Men are bad. Yeah, that's how they see the world. And then they also don't know the protocol of what a married woman should be like, that she should check in. Whereas when you live with mum and dad, you see mum doesn't go out so much at night. And you see that mum's a bit annoying as well. Poor dad, she's a bit rude to him. You see both sides of it. You see how annoying mum can be. But when you get no access to that, you become totally, totally naive about the severity of